Good morning, everybody. School of Extension and Development Studies, Indira Gandhi National Open University has started a program, Postgraduate Certificate in Extension and Development Studies, Postgraduate Diploma in Extension and Development Studies, and Masters of Arts in Extension and Development Studies. The major focus of this program revolves around economic growth and sustainable development. And to speak on this topic, we have a very eminent scholar, Professor Kumar B. Das. I would like to say to my students that this particular discussion, that is on economic growth and sustainable development, will be very helpful to all our students of these three modular programs. Over to you, Professor Kumar B. Das.
Today's theme of discussion in this session is economic growth and sustainable development. I have purposefully selected this theme. I thought this is a proper topic for our viewers, for our students, for our potential students, those who are studying in IGNOU and other universities. So this theme I selected, it has also contemporary relevance. We have been talking in every sphere and at every forum. We have been thinking and talking about sustainable development, but it has a lot of confusions, misconceptions about sustainable development, because mostly we have been thinking economic growth, economic development and sustainable development. All these three things are not same. Economic development is a very long term phenomenon. It is measured by a real per capita income. It is a dynamic process. It is a multi-dimensional character, and it refers to both quantitative and qualitative. It has a human face, like reducing beggary, slavery, child labor, dowry, drudgery, child selling, casteism, addictions, gambling, fatalism, dogmas, how it will reduce prostitution, superstition and terrorism. So all are part of economic development. With that, we have also been concerned with a concept of developmentalism, which is more or less connected to economic growth. And developmentalism has major following features. The first is it refers to a belief that all nations could and should replicate developmental experience of advanced countries and must keep faith in the success of advanced countries. This is the first feature. Second feature is it believes in private free enterprise with trickle-down effect, where the percolation effect will be to the ground. Third is it refers to a support for free or open access for trade and investment, and it also refers to promotion of free flow of information and culture. And the last one is it stimulates economic growth through free market policy and improvement in material standard of living. So this is called developmentalism, which is mostly economic growth. So economic growth and development, when we distinguish, these are the difference between growth and development. So development is very broad term. Development is multidimensional, whereas economic growth is single, unidirectional. Economic growth is quantitative, whereas economic development is qualitative and quantitative both. And economic growth is planned, spontaneous, whereas development or economic development is referring to gradual and steady change. And economic growth is discontinuous, whereas development is continuous. Economic growth is can be growth without development, but development is growth with development. And economic growth always is confined to economic factors, whereas economic development refers to economic and non-economic factors. So these are the difference between economic growth and economic development. Economic development and development, there is also again difference. Development is a very broad term. Economic development is only quantitative concept, which implies higher standard of living for the society and for individuals, whereas development is very broader concept. It is very normative, very quantifiable and subjective concept. But development refers to peace, prosperity of individual and society. It includes human development, people's empowerment, gender equality, social equality, higher longevity, better health status, quality of life, quality of air and water, level of and access to education and literacy, food security, safety and security of the people. So this is called as development, and economic development is very narrow, and it goes to a reductionist view of quantifying everything. That is economic development. But development is very broad. It has political dimension, social dimension, cultural dimension. It has also a sociological dimension, historical dimension. So it has also religious dimension. So this is development is a very broad concept which we never And this is the slide which I want to show. Development is very broad concept, which is normative, which refers to poverty reduction, which refers to inequality reduction, which refers to real progress, which refers to sustainability and self-esteem and freedom of the people, and it must be sustainable in the long run, and it must be primary, it must refer to primary, secondary, and tertiary, all sectors. Whereas growth, the graph in the below, this shows only economic growth. Economic growth can be a part of development, but it's not. So development and economic growth, they are not same exactly. So economic growth in our country, for example, after economic liberalization, we have been observing the country is having very hyper economic growth, but development is a question. Development of, suppose, the cultural development, or the terrorism is increasing, or the prostitution, or these are all increasing, and social backwardness is also a big question. Socially we are prospering or not. So these are the aspects which we have been neglecting, but economic growth is very exciting in this country. So our Indian setup is a bright example where we find high economic growth is associated with a development which is not relevant for the society. So then sustainable development has three parameters, three dimensions. One is socially must be acceptable, environmentally must be sustainable, and economically must be viable. So it has three dimensions, three components of sustainable development. It has become a very buzzword. There is some degree of confusion and ambiguity in the perception of the people. Therefore, I thought it is proper to explain sustainable development. Sustainable development refers to the prosperity which is uninterrupted in the long run, which refers to a multi-generational equity of use of resources. The prosperity of the present generation should not affect the consumption, production, all activities of the future generation. That is called sustainable development. So this is defined by various authors, various experts in the working in the sustainable development field. And here it refers to environmental sustainability, and environmentally it must be sustainable. So the air we breathe, the water we drink, the soil we grow our food, and the ocean we are surrounded by, forestry and fishery, level of noise, the dispersed water and field stink. So these are absence of natural light and air. So the sickness, bacteria, viruses, poverty, hunger, these are all part of the environmental quality, environmental quality is going down, though economically we are prospering. So economic prosperity is happening, but environmental quality is going down, and pollution level is increasing, soil erosion has been happening, biodiversity is depleting. Therefore, the concept of green development has also come to the fore, and we are discussing. Green development concept refers to long-term growth of the GDP, so the gross national product, and that must grow and that by preserving the environment, and that refers to a carrying capacity where we cannot afford to ignore the future and protect the environment. So therefore we must have a concern for the green development. We should not run after a very myopic industrialization process, which I call it industrial goods. We are sometimes thinking of industrializing the country without caring for the carrying capacity of the country. Country's carrying capacity, or the Earth's carrying capacity, is being depleted and degraded because we are obsessed with a kind of industrialization which is very short term, which has very long term deleterious effect on the environment. So environmental pollution, environmental degradation, quality of life, quality of environment is going down, because the quality of life ultimately depends on quantity that you consume, and the quality of environment that also you enjoy, the leisure that we enjoy, the quality of the tranquil atmosphere that we enjoy. So ultimately the peace of mind depends on quantity and quality. So quantity refers to our production, consumption. Quality refers to our recreation, our leisure, our tranquil atmosphere, our peace of mind. So these are the things that we are concerned about in green development. Then sustainable development has been defined by various authors, and this mostly refers to two things: the social capital and the stock of asset. The social capital and social and environmental needs of the people, and stock of asset. That asset can be man-made, that asset can be nature's made, that can be social capital. So these are the two types of capital that the sustainable development concept is aiming at. And And it has two features. Mostly the sustainable development has two features: social environmental needs of the people and the stock of asset, that is preserving man-made, natural and human and social capital. And there is, in the long run, there has been a shift of emphasis. The UN Conference on Environment and Development in 1992 was emphasizing on climate change. It was emphasizing on biodiversity preservation. It was also emphasizing on how to reduce desertification. Now, the World Summit on Sustainable Development of 2002 held in Johannesburg. I also attended this summit in Johannesburg in 2002, where the emphasis has been shifted from from climate change to social and economic issues like poverty, joblessness, and sanitation and health. So, this is the slide which I want to show, where the sustainable development concept has been rightly explained. So, these three circles represent three dimensions. The smaller circle inside, which represents only economic system, economic development. The middle refers to your social development. The third one, the last one, the bigger one, is referring to the natural environment. So sustainable development has three dimensions. This triangle shows society, environment and economy. All the three dimensions are compatible and consistent. If three things are combined, then anything which is socially acceptable must be environmentally sustainable. Anything which is environmentally sustainable must be economically viable. So all these three dimensions are included, and therefore these are the three dimensions of sustainable development. So sustainable development is not only exactly confined to environment or to the society. It is concerned with all three parameters, three social and environmental and economical dimensions of the activities of the mankind. This is sustainable development, where all these three things are three circles. Environmental quality has to be maintained, economic efficiency has to be maintained in production and consumption, and social equity must be maintained in preservation and conservation. So the middle one is called as, this middle space is called as the sustainable development concept, and the first indicator is gross sustainable development product, which is replacing gross domestic product. Normally we talk in terms of economics, that is called gross domestic product, but now I am talking about gross sustainable development product. This is one indicator. There are three indicators. The first one is this, where I am saying gross sustainable development product is having the following things. It indicates the solution to the problem as well as the direction to take. These are all including the investment on technology and research and development. This is concerned with increase in productivity and end use efficiency. This also is concerned about to modify the social services and educational program. This refers to slow down and increase of economic growth, and it refers to remediate component of major quality system and rectify present shortcomings of the income and wealth of the wealth account. Then second one is genuine progress indicator. Genuine progress indicator is different from economic indicator. Economic growth is going up. In the red line, it indicates the economic growth is going up, but genuine progress indicator shows that it is going down. Therefore, it's just the behavior is just like a scissor movement. This is very attractive and exciting. The second one, the black line in this graph, shows that we are not really prospering. And genuinely, if we measure the genuine progress of the society of our country, for example, India, for example, the genuine progress is not prospering because it includes the social aspect, it includes the environmental aspect. As a result, the black line is not prospering as the red line. The red line is going up, which is very attractive, which only indicates economic growth and economic development. But second one is black line. Black line indicates the genuine progress of the society, which does not occur, which goes down, and in the long run it is going to deviate, and the disparity between these two lines is ever increasing. Third indicator is Global Living Planet Index, which is also a third indicator, which also shows that the living planet index, Global Living Planet Index, is also going down, whereas the red line is referring to the Gross World Product Index. It is going up, and it is very exciting and very hopeful and optimistic. We are very optimistic in the globe as a global citizen, as an Indian citizen also. We are very optimistic about our future economic growth. But when we measure the Global Living Planet Index, our position in the globe is going down, and it is worse in developing countries, and because developing countries are consuming more, they are deforesting more, and so high deforestation, they are obsessed with their economic growth, which is spoiling the environment more than the advanced countries, because overhunting, overfishing, overgrazing, overpumping of water is happening in our country. Therefore, global living planet index is going down, and underdeveloped countries are also equally responsible like developed countries. Sustainable growth path is referring to this steady line which is called S, and economic path is E. E path means efficient path. This efficient path is economically efficient, but it has a maximum point. Whereas sustainable path has no maximum point. It is ever increasing but slow and steady but unimpressive in the beginning. It is the lower axis represents time period, and this axis refers to your sustainable development and economic development. So economic development path is very attractive in the beginning. It has a maximum point, and then it curves down, and it is economically efficient, economically viable. But the second line, which is sustainable path, which I am thinking and hypothesizing, that line is very unimpressive in the beginning. It's very slow but steady. It is uninterrupted, and it is always sustainable. Therefore, it is going very smoothly. In the long run, you are prospering. It has no maximum at all, because it takes into account the carrying capacity. It very well understand the necessity of protecting the environment and producing more and protecting more also. The environment must be protected, and also simultaneously we must produce more production, more protection necessary, more consumption necessary, more quantity and more quality necessary, quantity of life, quantity of consumption, quality of life, both must be maintained. Therefore, this kind of sustainable path, which is unimpressive in the beginning, should be accepted by the present generation, so that we can give some space for the future generation, because sustainable development is a concept which is concerned about, as I said already, intergenerational equity. Intergenerational equity means we are not only borrowing, we are not inheriting from the past, we are borrowing from the future. That is a concept which I am developing. That means always we, as a son and a daughter or as a grandson, we say that we inherit from our grandfather, we inherit a property from our father. That inheritance is about one generation, but in a multi-generational view, we must now pause and think, really we are not borrowing from our past, we are really borrowing from the future generation. Modernity, our modernization concept, our economic growth concept has become very synonymous with consumerism, which is unfortunate. Urbanism, enoughism is the meaning of development now, which is really very harmful for the globe. When we talk of modernization, when we talk of computerization, when we talk of liberalization and development, economic growth, they are all synonymous with urbanism now. It is all synonymous with consumerism. It is all synonymous with a hedonistic pleasure, happiness that we get from consumption only. But we never pay any attention or any concern. We are never feel concerned about the future generation, what is their amount of petrol consumption, what is the amount of coal consumption, what is the amount of extraction they will have, what are the way of life or the level of living they will have after thousand million of years. This green development concept, if we just see this slide, when we say that green development concept, so which is concerned about the contribution to GDP, gross national product, must be adhered with value of environmental standard or resources, and must be deducted from the cost of environmental damage that we do. The damage that we cause to the environment, that must be deducted. Therefore, our saving must be more than depreciation of the natural capital and depreciation of the man-made capital. DK and DN, these are the depreciation. The man-made capital and the natural capital, that there is depreciation. Our saving of resources, natural resources or environmental resources, must be more than that. Therefore, the standard cost-benefit formula should be revised. The benefit at point time t and minus cost minus environmental damage, it must be deducted. Therefore, the standard cost-benefit formula of economics must be revised, and it is high time to think in a manner or in a development pattern which must give us sustainable development, not only economic development. I want to emphasize only one thing, that is indigenous technical knowledge. That is the resource, that is the source of our sustainability that we must understand in developing countries like ours. India is the best example where we have ITK, indigenous technical knowledge, and this technical knowledge is really compatible to the environment, is really compatible to the society, which is really addressing the question of sustainable development. We should not ignore the indigenous knowledge of the farmers in the villages, which is evolving, which is very traditional, which looks very unattractive, but it is compatible to the nature. And village farmers, for example, the tribal way of farming, the tribal people, they live as a part of the nature, but the modern scientists, modern agricultural scientists, they propagate the idea how to live apart from the nature. So any way of life, the way of life is apart from the nature, we are spoiling the carrying capacity, and in the process we are killing the goose which is laying golden eggs. Similarly, environmental pollution caused by the industrial practices is also, if not pollution intensive, it has become energy intensive. We have been trying to reduce pollution in the vehicles. We have been trying to reduce industrial pollution. We have been trying to reduce water pollution. This is again tip of the iceberg. We never think how to reduce energy consumption. Our all modernization process in the industrial sector is only confined to reduce pollution, but it is never thought to how to reduce energy consumption. So all our human activities, whether it is developed countries or developing countries, are all producing 3 E's. First E refers to high emission. Second E refers to high extraction. Third E refers to high energy consumption. So high energy consumption is also equally demanding, highly demanding and highly exploiting the environmental resource base. Therefore, this ITK concept which I am developing, which is nothing but a very simple way of life, and it is very slow, very unattractive. The knowledge that the farmers or village people, they may be ignorant, they may be illiterate, they may be unskilled, but they evolve, and this refers to the past experience, this refers to the past tradition, and indigenous people with the historical continuity of resources use practices often possess a broad knowledge base of the behavior of the complex ecological system in their own localities. And local knowledge, that is the basis of agriculture, environmental conservation, education and many other activities is known as indigenous knowledge. It is past experience, it is past customs, it is referring to religious practices, it also refers to community laws and attitude of the society that concerns their lives and the lives of other living things. And this ITK has the following features. It is region specific and culture specific and society centric. It is dynamic and adaptable in nature. It is cumulative process of accumulated knowledge. It belongs to a group of people who live in close contact with the natural system. It contrasts with modern or Western formal scientific knowledge. It refers to a holistic, slow, subjective, oral, intuitive, spiritual and inconclusive. It is never dominant, it's never rapid, it is always academic. The modern way of modern knowledge, modern scientific discovery are all subversive, not holistic, very rapid, very objective, very academic. Sometimes the knowledge in the laboratory is never translated to the land. There is a huge gap between land and laboratory. Laboratory things which is very efficient in laboratory, very attractive in laboratory, is never used in the land. So land and lab, the difference goes on increasing. Some are very pessimistic. In the process, we have produced in the academic circle, we have produced two groups of scholars. One group is very pessimistic, other group is very optimistic. The pessimistic group, they say that we are just heading towards a disaster because environmental resources are going to be depleted and there will be exhaustion of resources. Renewable resources, non-renewable resources, both are going to be exhausted. Climate change is more natural, less anthropogenic, both very, very pessimistic. A group is very pessimistic. The other group is very optimistic. The other group is optimistic. Those who are very optimistic, they believe blindly on the potential success of science, potential success of the market. They believe in the market substitutes. They believe in scientific substitutes that is going to happen. They believe in science. They believe in scientific discovery. Science will produce substitutes and the market will deliver the goods which are economically viable and socially efficient. So they believe they are optimistic. But the fact remains, suppose I cannot accept either of the views, because the fact remains that we live at the cost of our posterity. We lead a very attractive life. We lead a very, very beautiful, fashionable urban life in metros and cities. But it is a fact that we are consuming, producing, doing everything at the cost of our grandchildren. So we are inheriting, we are borrowing everything, and we are living on borrowed time, we are living on borrowed resources, and the currency in the nature is life, but the currency in the monetary sector is money. A tree, for example, a tree, if you cut tomorrow, a 20 years old tree, if you cut the tree, then you get money, huge amount of money. A tree gives you money, but money cannot give you a tree. This ITK is unimpressive, but it is holistic. It is unimpressive, but it is slow, but steady. It is subjective, it is intuitive, and it is but inconclusive. It is always experimental. It is not final. So small is beautiful concept of Samachar must be accepted, and that is highly consistent with the concept of Gandhian way of thinking, where Gandhian way of austerity is to be accepted, and Gandhi's way of life is to be spreaded and to be propagated around the globe, across the countries. Everybody must think how to live with happiness. Happiness can come from your own mind. A rich man is not necessarily happy, a poor man is not necessarily unhappy. Happiness depends on one person's mind and attitude to life. Therefore Mahatma Gandhi says that nature has everything for the need of the person, but nature has nothing for the greed of one person. Even greed of the one person can be more than nature's gift. So nature's carrying capacity will be less for greed of one man, but nature has everything for the need of 7 billion people of the globe. Therefore, let us have a austere, or let us not promote consumerism. Let us lead a life of peace, tranquility, and happiness, which is shown by Bhutan way of life. Bhutan is now number 1 or 2 in terms of gross domestic happiness. It's not gross domestic product. So happiness is a different concept, peace is a different concept, which we must promote. Happiness does not depend on the level and amount of consumption, depends on the mind of the person. Therefore, this variety, this consumerism, this urbanism, this metro culture of consuming more and more should be automatically voluntarily curbed by individuals, so that we really pay attention to the preservation, quality of life, preservation of the natural environment, and we must, with the practice, all our practices must be socially acceptable, environmentally sustainable, and economically viable. All three things put together, we can have a sustainable economic development for our future generations. So with this, I conclude, and I hope our students and viewers must have got some message for themselves, and they must think of changing their attitude to the society, attitude to the environment. Environment is never a product, is never a destination to be exploited. It is a resource. It is a source of strength, source of energy, it is a part of, we are part of the nature. We must understand we are never apart from nature. We must have a natural way of living with the nature. We are part of the nature. We should not exploit the nature. We should not think that it is a matter of, it is a source of energy to be exploited indefinitely for our own benefit, for our present generation, for our present happiness. So we must have deeper concern for the environmental sustainability. So we must know the distinction between economic growth, which is attractive, and the sustainable development, which is really not attractive, but very in the long run it helps us to have a peaceful, prosperous society. Thank you very much.